Good morning, everybody. Jeff, do you want to start us off?
For sure. Yep. So my name is Jeff Wilson, and I'm the founder and the owner of Fund EDU. We are a fundraising organization that does tax credit scholarships. That's all we focus on. We are just a niche operation that focuses on tax credits. We started in Pennsylvania with the EITC, OSTC programs, and now obviously the federal version of the Pennsylvania programs is upon us. And so also joining us are some other members of Fund EDU I'll introduce, but our keynote is Guy Ciarrocchi, who is the public relations personnel from the Commonwealth Foundation, which is a lobbying operational apparatus that has been pivotal in helping to manage, promote, lobby for the growth that we've seen in the Pennsylvania EITC program. And Guy, you'll have to fill me in, but I would imagine that you guys were important confidants in the creation and execution of the EFTC program as well, because the way it looks to me, although nobody knows for sure, but it is that the federal version, boy, looks a lot like the Pennsylvania program. I do know that they actually were in 2017 meeting with a school or two that we work with. And so also with us is Robert Degre, who is one of our partners, one of our members, and an EFTC advocate, and also helps us with data analytics and some things with AI, which is coming into the space. And then Chris Micah, who is a partner here at Fund EDU, works a lot with the AI. Also looking forward to applying some of those technologies as we go forward and we learn more about how this program is going to work. And so the question is, what is the Education Freedom Tax Credit? So we're talking about this billion-dollar question. Will Governor Shapiro opt Pennsylvania into the federal program, right? And so, as I mentioned, that we believe that the Education Freedom Tax Credit is a new federal law modeled on Pennsylvania's own EITC program. So it all started here in Pennsylvania. The proof of concept with Pennsylvania's EITC program is definitely there. There are over 100,000 students helped just this year and 90,000 who are still on the wait list, which means there are more people who want to get scholarships in Pennsylvania to try to have educational freedom than there are available dollars. Okay, and so in terms of are we ahead or are we behind in Pennsylvania? Yeah, we're behind, and so there are 27 other states now that have said yes to this program and have opted in, including Colorado, which is currently a blue state. Used to be a red state, but currently a blue state. And then the deadline for us for Pennsylvania is December 31st. What the research shows, the first quarter 2026, we have just found that this is a popular idea. You know, the idea that there would be some kind of a release valve, some kind of apparatus with public finance, public funding to allow, in particular, lower income families. The math is we think could be $1 billion. I mean, it's I think probably going to be a little bit more difficult to navigate than what everybody thinks, and that's fine. That's where we come in. We're the experts on this. But the big central question, and really the reason that I wanted to talk to Guy today, because he is in the know more than most, is what's Shapiro thinking? What issues is he facing? What corners is he into? How's he going to try to answer this question? I think it would be ridiculous for him not to do it, as much of an education spending advocate as he says that he is. And so, again, this is a little bit of a rehash about what the Education Freedom Tax Credit is. It's modeled on Pennsylvania. What this is designed to do is to get people to donate, right? And so basically we say, if you donate, we'll claw it back out of your taxes. And so donors will donate to a registered scholarship granting organization. And the SGO, as it's called, they will award the scholarships to income qualified students. Will be, and I think that this probably is going to be the number, but it'll be $1,700. I think it's going to be per household. Nobody knows for sure. Hopefully, and the Treasury is currently writing the rules, but it'll be 3,400 per jointly filing married couple. But I'm getting signals that I think I trust that say it's 1,700 per return, which, it's a start. Okay. It is not a voucher. Donors choose to give. So this is a way to encourage donations. And so that's how it works. In terms of the cost to taxpayers, this is, is out of your taxes that you would have to pay anyway. And again, getting people to want to donate, helping people who, might struggle ever to make a $1,700 donation. This would help them to do that. And then we, again, have till December 31st to get the governors to opt in. This is, again, a little bit of a rewind, but 100,000 students just in Pennsylvania have been helped by the state program, 90,000 basically waitlisted, 252 scholarship organizations. And this program is not new. So it started here in 25 years ago, if you guys can believe that, and has had I would say, revolutionary impact. I would say many, many other schools were on their way to closing in Pennsylvania. If you go back, even when we started, we are in our 10th year. Tremendous effect. And so, we're hoping that the federal program then can come in and be stacked upon the state program. And I tell schools all the time, the government wants you to continue to do what you're doing. By the way, this is not just for private schools, the way the majority of the Pennsylvania program is. This is for private and public. So this is just an increase in education spending. So there is a lane also for private schools as well as the rest.
As we move over, I'll ask Guy if you want to take it away and kind of give us a little bit more background in what's going on specifically in Pennsylvania.
Sure. Well, thanks for the opportunity to share. I've been working on this since it passed. Was one of the advocates helping it pass, and then worked with other organizations to teach the teachers. We, back in the day after it passed 25 years ago here in Pennsylvania, met with businesses, met with the Pennsylvania CPAs Association so that the accountants understood it and they could talk to their clients and have that sort of ripple effect, that pyramid build out. And now we stand here 25 years later. Over 100,000 students will be helped this year. As Jeff said, 80, 90,000 who'd like to be, but the tax credit ran out. One of the ways we fill that gap is with the federal tax credit. I say, like a lot of government programs, sometimes folks are skeptical that government programs work. This is pretty straightforward. If you as a donor, as an individual, or you own or operate a small business, or you work at a major company like Comcast, you can donate what would be part of your taxes to a registered scholarship organization. An organization that's registered with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has to submit its own tax returns and meet its own standards. So the donors give voluntarily. The donors get to pick the scholarship organization they want to that meets their needs. The scholarship organization awards scholarships to families that qualify, meeting the criteria laid out by the state. It's not complicated. I donate $10,000 to a scholarship organization. Scholarship organization gives away 5 $2,000 scholarships to a working class or lower income family so their child can go to a school that the parents pick. My belief is that this is a win-win-win in every conceivable way. You get the rare opportunity as a taxpayer to direct where some of your taxes go. You get to help a family that deserves it. The family gets to find a school that works for their child, and every single taxpayer in the Commonwealth benefits when a child gets to go to a school that mom or dad chose, where they want to be, as opposed to being trapped in a school that might be unsafe, not meeting their academic needs, undermining parents' values, whatever the case may be. It's a win-win-win. So as Jeff said, the federal program is modeled after Pennsylvania, which simply says what you've been doing at the state level in Pennsylvania and many other states, Colorado, Iowa, and Wisconsin and others, is you could do this at the federal level. Same thing. You donate to an organization that awards scholarships. It's a registered organization, files its tax returns, and then there's now more money. Jeff talked about perhaps $1 billion more. I like to point out that's not a number from the White House. That's not a number from the Commonwealth Foundation as sort of a conservative think tank focused on opportunity. That's the number that Democrats for Education Reform, which is a national organization of Democrat former office holders, policymakers, thought leaders who think that the Democratic Party ought to lean into this, not fight it. Their suggestion is that in Pennsylvania alone, there could be $1 billion more. And as Jeff said, scholarship organizations could give it to parents wanting to send their kids to a Catholic school, a Jewish day school, or, as Jeff rightly points out, most school districts in Pennsylvania have a nonprofit scholarship or aid organization to help kids with tutoring or to get computers or to get the supplies they need to succeed. So imagine we could have $1 billion more to help children next year. It doesn't cost taxpayers a penny, and every child that gets support is the beneficiary. We know it works. It's not complicated. It's 25 years strong in Pennsylvania, where literally millions of children who are now adults, somebody who got a scholarship at age 12, 25 years ago is 37 years old today. We know it works. It's a national model. There's actually been an update. We now have 35 of the 50 states have made a decision. 29 have said yes. Kansas came on board yesterday. 29 have said yes. Of the 6 who said no, 4 have said they're rethinking it. So Pennsylvania is among the 15 states that has not yet made a decision. We're in the minority. The cynical part of me would point out that the governors of Maryland, Pennsylvania, Illinois, and California have not opted in or made a decision yet. Those gentlemen have something in common aside from being among the 15, and that is all 4 of them are thinking of running for president, which is why they're hesitant to make a decision, because whichever decision they make, there's a political constituency that will be disappointed. But I think we can prevail upon people's better angels and put the focus on kids and families looking for options. And that's why I applaud what you're doing today and happy to be a part of it.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Guy. We appreciate having you here and, of course, for all the work you've done over the course of your career. Speaking on that, I just wanted to touch base on some of the research that I have been doing on this program. I was fortunate enough just last week to present at Bryant University in Rhode Island regarding what the public sentiment is. So in particular, looking at items such as, publications, op-eds, journal posts, news articles, formal news coverage, we're, kind of blown away to see that over 90% of the coverage is at least neutral, informative, or positive. It's speaking, very broadly that over this course of, 500 articles in the course of Q1 alone, only 7% is negative. It's speaking really to the fact that it's a program that people are interested in. It's a program that people want. And it's a program that ultimately is going to go back and help support local students and local families. I won't get into all the coding and methodology behind it, but if anybody has questions, feel free to reach out afterwards. More than happy to nerd out on all that stuff. The other half of the research that I've been doing has been working with, in particular, machine learning analysis, looking at these 41 existing school choice programs in over 2,300 or 23,000, I apologize, districts. Multiple methods. Again, I won't get too into the weeds on those. But the key finding is really showing that similar analog programs, the strongest enrollment effect when regarding, public school, we see about a 0.38 shift as they mature. And so what that means is, in contrast, I should say, to established markets, where we don't really tend to see a lot of disruption to enrollment based on how those programs have operated over the course of their history. So what that gives us and what that tells us is really that there are arguments saying, well, a program like this is going to destabilize our public schools. We're going to see a lot of, transitions, a lot of movement. And mathematically, analytically speaking, yes, there's some shift. Yes, there's some support from public to private, but the vast majority of the support will go to supporting students already enrolled. And especially in this case, with the expanded opportunity available, there's opportunity, for the transportation, for the extra materials in the public schools. So the way that this is going to work as we begin looking forward is, we expect some similarity to what the models are telling us, but these are at this point in time preliminary research findings. We're not at that, forward-looking predictive stage yet. So it'll be interesting to see how Pennsylvania as an established market, should the governor opt in, what that impact will have on the public and private school enrollment. So I will turn it back over to Guy. I know you've mentioned already Democrats for Education Reform getting to that 1 billion, but if you just want to break down some of the other numbers for us.
Sure. So the 101,000 families that benefit and the 80,000 on the waiting list, why? Because as Jeff and his team know, these tax credits have a cap. In other words, when the Pennsylvania budget is enacted and the volumes of pages, I would date myself and say they're like the size of the Philadelphia phone book, but most of your listeners don't know what the Philadelphia phone book looked like. But when the budget is passed and it's hundreds and hundreds of pages in there, when we get to the funding and the fiscal code, we talk about how taxpayer money is raised and allocated. There's a limit for this program. This year, that number is about 625 million, meaning that once donors, be they corporations, small businesses, partnerships, or individuals donate, and that donation reaches up to 625 million, we're done. So even if more people wanted to give, we can't. So all of that money then goes out the door by organizations giving the money to parents. Every one of the parents has to apply. Those parents have to meet income limits established by the legislature. So it's a fairly regulated program, yet at the same time. And Robert, one of the things I just want to emphasize for a second is this should be about children and getting them in the schools, but also this issue that, as we speak today, is being debated in Harrisburg, and this issue of accountability and our taxpayers being protected. And how do we know that we're getting bang for the buck? I would argue that this program has more accountability than anything else in education. And this program has more accountability than almost anything else the Commonwealth does. And why do I say that? Every donor, be they Comcast, Guy's Auto Body, or the Wilson family, everyone who donates freely. They get to decide whether they wish to donate. They get to decide how much they wish to donate. They get to decide which organization they're going to donate to, perhaps based on the mission or the geography of that school, helping children in Reading, helping children attend a Jewish school, helping kids that perhaps have parents who are deceased. All of these scholarships organizations have a mission. So there's accountability by the donor. No one gives a dime unless they want to. And if they're disappointed giving in 2025, they don't give in 2026. Next, the schools choose to participate. That means the schools agree to accept the money. If the schools think the money's not worthwhile, the process is too complicated, they don't like the kids they're taking in, they can opt out. Thirdly, the parents. If the parents don't want to apply for the money, they don't have to. If the parents take the money and send their children to the Guy Ciarrocchi Academy, and they decide that Guy Ciarrocchi Academy is either not teaching their child, not being responsive, or not providing a safe environment, they may withdraw their child at any time and go to the local public school, something that is not the case with local public school district run schools. If you're poor, you can't leave. And I would just, share with your listeners the truism, but it is really impactful. Most families in Pennsylvania, most families in America have school choice. They can afford tuition. They can move to a quote unquote good district. Or, I know you don't believe this, but in places like Philadelphia that operate on politics and handshakes, if you're well connected, you can move your child from one school to another. It's for the rest of us. It's for the rest of us that can't afford the tuition, that can't afford to move to a better district, or that don't know our local ward leader, city councilman, or state senator, that we need school choice. And as taxpayers, we want that. No child should wake up in the morning and be sent to a school that we all know, according to the Pennsylvania Department of Education's own data, is either unsafe or academically failing. No child. And that we would do that to poor or working class families is a moral and economic outrage. So this program works, but it is fully accountable in every conceivable way. And it's worthwhile because every child that gets into a good school, we all win as taxpayers and citizens.
Thank you. And if you wouldn't mind taking a couple more minutes, would you just be able to articulate some of the other, obstacles or some of the things that are being presented to Governor Shapiro as reasons to not opt into the program?
Sure. First and foremost, it's the teachers union. Now, I always, caution, like many things in life, like many large organizations, there are members and there are leaders, right? I am not condemning teachers. A good teacher is a lifesaver. A good teacher is a life changer. He or she opens windows, helps struggling students, helps gifted students reach higher. But the teachers union as an entity acts pretty much like a party boss or a ward leader. They oppose competition. It's for very practical reasons. They view every child that leaves Strawberry Mansion High School in Philadelphia and then enrolls at West Catholic as a lost client. And they see the dollars and the need for more teachers at Strawberry Mansion going down. So they are very vocal in opposing all forms of choice. They don't like charter schools. They don't like cyber schools. They don't like homeschooling. And they especially don't like this tax credit program. And their national organization and their state organizations have made it known. They testify about it. They post about it. They write about it. They go on podcasts, webinars, and radio and television and talk about it because they talk about those issues about like accountability. When it comes down to it, they see the children in Philadelphia. They see the children, in Bradford County as clients that come with a ticket, with a check, and they don't want it to leave. So the governor, who wants to be president, has a challenge. He and his wife exercise school choice. Their children go to a Jewish day school. I never mention their names. I never mention their school. It's not about those kids. The governor's doing what I did with my wife and I did. We sent our kids to a local Catholic school. We exercised choice. All I would say to the governor is allow poor and working class families. Suppose Mr. and Mrs. Shapiro made $51,000 a year. They could not make that choice, and they could not move to a, quote, good school district to fix it. And obviously their faith is important to them. I commend them for that. So the obstacle he faces are the teachers union for someone who wants to be president. It's why I think you see his colleagues, Governor Newsom, Governor Pritzker, Governor Moore. Those 4 governors are among the 15 that haven't decided. They're going to have to make a decision. You either help poor and working class families get an opportunity to succeed, to embrace the American dream, to get out of schools that are failing, or you side with the teachers union for short-term political gain. And Robert, I'll just share, data. I maybe can't nerd out to your level, but I will share with yours. I share this data not to pick on, as I say, like I don't talk about the governor and where his children go to school or their names. When I talk about schools that are failing, I don't mention the principal. It's not personal. I'm not angry at these people. I'm just saying, imagine your mom or dad. The reading proficiency rate, according to the Department of Education, not the Commonwealth Foundation, not Fox News, not FundEDU. The reading proficiency rate in the Philadelphia School District is 30% at grade level. That means 70% of the children wake up in the morning and go to a school where 70% of the children can't do grade level reading and writing. Only 25 can do grade level math. 65% of the schools are deemed violent, or what they call persistently violent, meaning that there is a percentage of violent incidents that take place. The overlap of the old Venn diagrams, the good Immaculate Heart Sisters taught me back in the day, but the overlap of schools where children cannot read and do math and are violent, that accounts for over 40, almost 50% of the schools in some of our urban areas and across the state. So now you're Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, and you wake up in Southwest Philly and you send your 9-year-old daughter off to a school where you know the following: 7 out of 10 children can't read at grade level, 75% of the children can't do math, and it's one of the most violent schools in the state. Alternatively, we could give mom and dad freely donated money to let them go find a school where that child will be safe and learn. To me, this is one of the easiest choices ever. The governor's going to have to choose. The political power and the PAC donations of the teachers union are doing the right thing so that thousands of Pennsylvania children can do what he and his wife have chosen to do. And organizations like yours make it happen. What we need now is the federal tax credit so that the other children on waiting lists can be helped. So I thank you for what you do and proud to be on the same side.
Well, and that set us up just perfect. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris, who's kind of our advocacy guy as well, to talk about, now that, we've addressed some of the obstacles, spoken about why Governor Shapiro should opt in. Well, here's what our listeners can actually begin to do.
Yeah, so starting in 2027, each taxpayer will be eligible to donate up to $1,700 a year. We're still waiting to hear from Treasury about the joint filing, if they can do the $3,400. Although I feel personally it would be a penalty for married couples if you're only allowed to make a $1,700 contribution per return. Before that, you receive a dollar for dollar credit against your federal taxes. So essentially, there's no real cost to the taxpayer that does make the contribution. And not only that, to go a little bit further on what Guy was saying with the public schools and the teachers, just wanted to bring up again that this really is a program that public schools are also able to benefit from. Not every student will have the opportunity to go to a private school. They may not have one near them that is practical, but there is the opportunity for them to have money made available for tutoring, for educational therapies for the students. A big one, a truly great opportunity for these kids is dual enrollment. With dual enrollment, they'll be eligible to have their AP courses paid for, or dual enrollment with a university like Penn State while they're in high school. And the economic effects of potentially gaining enough credits to more or less skip 1 year of school at college level generally has about a $45,000 effect on that student. That's $45,000 between what they saved in tuition, what they saved in room and board, and extra earning potential that they had by being able to get into the workforce, 6 months earlier. So this does have a tremendous effect for these students as well. In addition to that, there's transportation for after school activities. A lot of lower income students, especially in rural areas, the only way they can get to and from school is on a bus. And if there's an after school program and they'd like to attend it, but they don't have transportation, they won't be able to participate. So that is another opportunity that is presented to students, to public school students as well. Technology and computer equipment, that's huge. If the school doesn't provide some of those resources, it can be provided by this program, as well as other materials, access to web resources that might be paid that are not typically covered. And then there are other programs as well that would just have to be qualified, through more or less the school district that would be eligible for these monies. So, it's something that it does present an opportunity for everybody in Pennsylvania, no matter what school you go to. And I really do feel that is probably one of the most substantial arguments for support statewide for the program.
Thank you. And yeah, we just have a couple of different call outs here. We do have, we'll move over to the next slide. All of our resources are available and ready for free on our website. We've got the QR code as well as the URL. number of different items, advocacy guide that includes talking points similar to the ones that we've covered today, contact information based on your address, your county, for your local leaders all the way up to the governor's office, as well as some templates and other, assets and collateral to help with that advocacy work. For school and network leaders, we have readiness assessments and readiness guides, simple Likert scale questions that cover a variety of domains to help what may be the best steps to take for your school before December of this year, as well as some mechanics, timeline, other specific analysis. So I do know that we were thinking 25 minutes. We're looking at about 35 right now, but I do want to just open up the chat if there are any questions anybody wants to type in. But first, I did have one that I wanted to raise over to Guy in particular. So we talked a lot about, impact in Pennsylvania, but what happens if Pennsylvania just ends up not opting in this year? Where do we go? How do we address that?
Yeah, well, sort of the good news and the bad news is the bad news is that all of the people who are currently donors or all of the people who might learn about this program and would have been spurred into action won't be able to give in Pennsylvania. And the other part of it, allow your listeners and viewers to decide, is you could give to a state that is opting in. Perhaps you move to Pennsylvania. There are a few people that move here occasionally. We seem to be better at exporting than importing. But perhaps if you grew up in West Virginia and moved to southwestern Pennsylvania, or moved to Philadelphia for all that matters, you could donate to a scholarship organization in West Virginia and get your federal tax credit. If you grew up in Pennsylvania, went to school in Pennsylvania, and have retired and now live in Florida, maybe you wanted to give money to help schools in Philadelphia or where you grew up in Bucks County. You can give money to schools in Florida and get a tax credit. You can't. So what happens if we don't opt in? If we don't opt in, we lose out on potentially $1 billion in free money, if you will, voluntarily donated money that goes to children. But we have perhaps the downside as a state. I mean, the good side as Americans, the downside as Pennsylvanians, is that Pennsylvania donors may give to the states they moved here from or retired to, or where their grandchildren or their godchildren, their niece or nephews go to school. Again, as an American, it'd be nice to help if somebody helps their grandkids or go to school in New Hampshire, right? But we're missing a golden opportunity, and I just hope it doesn't come to that. Organizations like yours will help in other states, and those of us will care about the greater good, because I especially don't want children in Pennsylvania to be left behind, but I certainly don't want children left behind if they live in Miami or Austin or Manchester, New Hampshire. So that's the downside for us as Pennsylvanians, is that our money will go elsewhere to the states that are participating.
Awesome. Thank you. And Jeff, I got one more. Jeff, Guy, maybe you guys want to split this one, but can you just speak a little bit about how this really differs from a voucher program? I think, we mentioned vouchers a little earlier. Someone would just like a little clarification.
Right. So our neighbor, Ohio, has basically a true voucher program over there. So does West Virginia. And the spirit of a tax credit is a little bit different than a voucher. A voucher is you send a bunch of money to Harrisburg or to Washington, and if they get around to it, they send some back, right? The tax credit says, hey, listen, yeah, there's an issue out there, but here's the deal. Don't even send us the money. Just keep your money up there. We'll use your accountants to keep it honest and do it that way. And so in the case of the EITC program, that's 90 cents on the dollar. That actually isn't even required in Harrisburg. So that's how tax credits are different from vouchers. Again, depending on, you might explain that a little differently with a different political persuasion, but that is that's really the spirit of how a tax credit works. So they just say, you know what? Yes, we agree. Here's some of the budget, run with that. And but here's the deal. Don't even send us the money. We'll give you a credit. You will then pay your taxes that way, essentially.
Yeah, and I would just build on it with sort of two practical points. I mean, Jeff explains it very well. Two practical points. Governor Youngkin, who had been the former governor of Virginia, I miss those days, but he used to explain it as the children would have a backpack, and in this sort of in this rhetoric in this concept, you would put $5,000, a $5,000 check in their backpack, and then mom or dad, you say go find the school you like, which may be George Washington Middle School. It may be a Catholic school, a parochial school, a Quaker school, a private school, a charter school, but we're going to put the money in your backpack. And that's more of the voucher model. The government saying, here's the money. You go into the marketplace and find what you want. The tax credit, again, as we've outlined, is donors freely giving where they chose to the organization they choose, and then the scholarship organization giving to lower income families to go find a school that works. And I just would remind your viewers and all those that work with you. Look, this is similar, not identical, similar to the way the government encouraged you to give to charities, the way that people give to the American Cancer Society, the way they give to Catholic charities. The government has made a policy decision that these are good things that we want to encourage your support. So you get a tax credit when you do those things. The same thing we do with small or medium-sized manufacturers. We tell your local machinist, if you go out and buy a more modern machine that uses less energy, you can get a tax credit for buying it because the business says, gee, the new widget machine costs $10 million. And we say, yes, but if we let you get 90% of the value back for that, we get the benefit of you getting a modern piece of equipment. It uses less energy. We'll incentivize you. That's what this is. We want children to be in a school that works. We want parents engaged in their education. The win-win is we encourage donors to give and parents to participate. Not much different than what we do in other areas of life with charities or with in the marketplace with innovation. Very different than a voucher. This is all voluntary, and the donor, the school, or the family can choose to walk away if they're ever dissatisfied.
Awesome. Thank you. And then I had one more come in that I think I'll tee up for Chris. We got a wonderful amount of, resources that are seen up on the screen here, talking points, contact, templates. How would you suggest actually deploying those? What are best practices for using some of the advocacy tools that you may recommend? Open to everybody, but I know Chris helped design a lot of it. So wanted to start him first.
Sure. Thank you, Robert. So first of all, and Robert really had a big part in this, is the EFTC readiness assessment. I would definitely direct people to that first. What that does is it walks them through really all of the key points that they need to be aware of to participate in the EFTC program. There's also some additional information for other programs that they may not be aware of that could really that private schools could rely on to also supplement the programs, but it really gives you a good baseline. In addition, it really primes the advocacy, or I'm sorry, the readiness guide with their information. It takes and actively pulls the results of the readiness assessment. It customizes the guide to your state and your county. So right in the guide, it'll tell you what the income limits are for the scholarships you're able to provide in your county. And then it'll highlight the areas that you probably need to do the most work in to be ready for the program. On top of that, we have the advocacy guide. So this guide really, again, if you did the EFTC readiness assessment, it'll prime the advocacy guide. But if not, you can just enter in a little bit of information and it will tell you, give you the contact information for the governor, all of the legislators that represent you or potentially the people in your school. It gives emails that are pre-written, customized, personalized to each of those lawmakers that you can copy and paste. We highly recommend that you add personal stories to those. Those generally do better whenever you're reaching out to your representatives. And then also, it just gives general guides on how to work with government officials in general, how to contact them, how to communicate, what you would expect, or what roles you're going to talk to, and how to move it through the process. So you can use that to help push this system through to make sure your voice is heard. That's probably one of the most important parts of the site for those participants in the states that haven't signed up yet.
Awesome. Thank you. Before we wrap up, Jeff, Guy, any other advocacy comments, what people can do to help today try to encourage the governor to opt in?
Go ahead, Guy.
So I would particularly appeal to those people that are participating. If you're a donor, if you're a scholarship organization and you have a staff and a board, if you're a family that's benefited, let's put party aside, nastiness aside, tell the good news. Explain why you donate. Explain why you choose to work in a field that helps children succeed. If you're a parent, a grandparent, explain the benefit is made. Talk to your local state representative, talk to your senator, send an email to the governor. Make this very personal. It need not be bitter, angry, attacking, partisan in any way. Tell your story. Why do you give? Why are you in this field of education and support, and why this has made a difference? Let's make this about the kids. Let's make this about the goal of the program. People voluntarily giving of time, treasure, and talent to help the next generation, and the next generation benefiting. Let's keep the focus there, but let's tell the story every day, everywhere across the state.